Welcome back! In this chapter we will weight paint the face. So first I'm going to enable the facial controls layer, and then I'll go into weight painting mode. In the previous chapter we weight painted the head with the head def master bone. So what I want to do next is to be able to open the character's mouth, and for that I'm going to weight paint the bone of the jaw. So I will select the bone called Maxi, and I'll also click on the auto normalize option so that when I weight paint with this bone, the weights I paint will be subtracted from the head def master bone. As I rotated the Maxi bone, the mouth starts opening while I go painting. As you can see, if I select the head def master bone, all the weights that I painted with the Maxi bone were subtracted from this one. But now I'll turn off the auto normalize option, cause I only use that option for painting the Maxi bone. So all that is left now is to start painting the horizontal bones and also the vertical bones, because this grid of bones helps preventing face intersections when the facial rig moves. But before I start doing that, I'm gonna make a halt here, and I'm going to show you how you can set this up in a rather automatic way. So if I select all the deformation bones, and then I go into weight painting mode, and then I do weights assigned automatic from bones, Blender will automatically calculate the bone weights from the distance between the mesh and the bones. As you see, this has worked fairly well, and the facial rig is already working with the model, even though there are a couple of weighting mistakes. Now, if I add a corrective smooth modifier, you will see that face deformation is greatly improved. So, if you are doing a secondary character, you could perfectly do this and get away with it. But as in this case, if you're doing a main character, I prefer to set all up manually so that I know where the weights are placed and to have the certainty that I won't come across any weighting errors that I couldn't have foreseen if I had used automatic weights. So, going back to the manual way, I'm going to start painting the weights of the facial rig. The idea is to paint the deformation bones and to try to overlap the weights of neighboring bones so that vertices share their influence. Then with the X mirror option enabled, I'll normally start painting the horizontal loops first, and then I do the vertical loops. So here I found out that I need to change the placement of one of the bone loops and place it next to another geometry loop. Therefore, I have two options. I could go again into reproportion mode, change the placement of the controllers and then bake the armature again, or I can do it right now in edit mode. In this case, I think that the second option is the easiest one. So I go into edit mode and I make sure that all the layers of the armature are turned on, and then I move the corresponding bones. After doing that, as I'm changing the bone length, I will go into pose mode and activate the rest position button, and then I will press the reset constraints button. And that will make sure that the rig works correctly after any change that I do in edit mode. Now I have finished painting the first horizontal loop, and I'll go on with the first group of vertical bones. As you can see, I also paint the inner section of the mouth. To tell you the truth, the mouth and inner mouth are the hardest areas to paint. The rest of the face is fairly easy to do. After we finish painting the facial rig, we have to remove all the undesired influence from the maxi and the head depth master bones, so that the facial rig has the proper influence over the mesh. But we'll do that once we finish with the whole facial grid. Now I'm gonna paint all the inner areas of the mouth, and for that I'm going to go to edit mode and I'm going to hide the rest of the head. When I go back into weight painting mode, I will press the face selection button. That will show me what I had selected in edit mode. I can press A to select all the faces, and then with the control key you can select the bones. So here I'm selecting the teeth deformation bones to paint the gums, and then I continue with the tongue. If you press the vertex selection button, you will notice that the smooth operator becomes enabled. So, with that operator, you can smooth out the weights of the selected bone or of multiple selected bones. Well, here I found out that the eyebrows were also misplaced, so I'm going to repeat the procedure and I'm going to go into edit mode with all the bone layers enabled. I'm going to move the bones to the place I want them to be, and then when I go out of edit mode, I will press the rest position button and then I will press again the reset constraints button. After that, I can go on painting. In the eyebrows, I will first paint the horizontal bones and then again I will paint the vertical bones. I'm gonna start with the eyes now. First the horizontal bones. Note that when I paint the vertical bones on the eyelids, I am not painting the contour of the eyelid. And this is because I want that area to be influenced only by the horizontal bones. Because if I paint it with the vertical bones, the deformation will not look alright sometimes. So keep this in mind when painting the eyelids. As I said earlier, now that I have finished painting the facial rig, I will remove the unnecessary influence of the maxi bone and of the head depth master bone. So I'll start erasing the weight of those bones. Here, note that the base of the jaw belongs to the maxi bone. Now I'll select the head depth master bone and I'll start removing the unnecessary influence. Here, note that the palate also belongs to the head depth master bone. So that would be the resulting influence of the head depth master bone. And you can think of it as the head depth master bone representing the rigid parts of the head, and all the rest of the face would be the parts where there are muscles, the parts that actually move. Well, now that I've removed all the unwanted weights, I'm gonna check out the deformations and see if there is anything to correct. At this stage of the process, I will try to do the weight painting as best as I can, but there will be things that I won't be able to solve with weight painting alone, and those things will be solved with corrective shape keys afterwards. In overall, by doing this basic weight painting, you can see that we can start enjoying a fully functional facial rig in our character. Actually, the head rig has two articulation points, which depend on three bones, which are head depth 3, head depth 2, and head depth 1. Currently, the head is only deformed by the bone called head depth master. Therefore, in order to be able to use the head rig in its full extent, the only step that we're missing is to assign weights to these three bones instead of only having the head depth master deform the head, which doesn't allow the rig to articulate. We are going to take the influence of head depth master and we're going to split it up in three so that we can assign the weights to the other three bones. So I will duplicate head depth master 3 times, and then, as I won't be using it anymore, I'll just delete the vertex group. And now I'm going to name these 3 duplicates as the bones that I want the head to be deformed by. So they are called head depth 3, head depth 2, and head depth 1. And if I now select those bones, you will notice that they have these vertex groups already assigned. As you can see, head depth 3 controls all the bones from the top of the head. So I'm going to erase all the influence that is beneath the level of the eyes from this bone. On the other hand, head depth 2 will go from the level of the eyes to the level of the nose or to the jaw. And finally, head depth 1 will go from the jaw all the way down. And now I'm going to smooth out the transition between these groups. We are done. Now you see that you can move the head with these 2 joints to get different tuning effects and expressions. Well, to finish with all this weight painting stuff, I'm going to correct a mistake I made when I painted the lips. As you see, if I move the lips, you will notice that their shape is a bit irregular, and that is because I painted the contours of the lips with the vertical bones. You may remember this from a couple of minutes ago when I painted the eyelids. So, I'm going to correct this by erasing the influence of the vertical bones from the contours of the lips. After doing this, I'm going to shift select all the vertical bones and I'm going to go to face selection mode, and then I'll run the smooth operator. But instead of smoothing only the active group, I'm going to select from the drop-down list the option selected post bones. And that will smooth out the groups of all the selected bones. Now if I move the lips again, you will notice that all the irregularities are gone. Well, this concludes the weight painting chapters. Next time we will be customizing the rig in order to skin some extra objects that this character has. Bye bye!